It's time for a look at the newspapers.
OK, we're going to start, shall we, with the Sunday Times. It's saying that the Prime Minister's cabinet faces collapse, with resignations expected if she calls for a snap election or backs a customs union with the EU.
On The Observer, they're talking about furious Conservatives who could try to block a snap election bid by Mrs May. The paper also reports that teachers are to take a £7,000 pay cut at one school in London that's facing a cash shortage, and they say that move will help it save jobs.
In what it calls the final trap for Brexit, the Sunday Express says MPs could strip away the benefits of Brexit if Parliament votes to keep the UK in a customs union in the next round of votes, which of course start tomorrow.
Full coverage, of course, of all of that on BBC News. But let's delve inside the papers. Dan's with us, Dan Sodergren, a technology analyst. Dan, you've picked a story out here. Morning to you, by the way. Morning. Mother's Day gift to millions of mums, it says, who might want to return to work. So this is a plan to get more working mothers back into the workplace.
Yeah, I just think it's obviously being Mother's Day. My mum was a working mum, so this is a great thing, and the government are getting behind this idea of flexible working. This most probably is going to be the future of work. And as the Minister rightly says, you know, having a child means that you shouldn't be able to get back into work, and it shouldn't be kind of a moment or an obstacle. So they're creating this new job site, first of its kind, to help people, or help mums particularly, get back into work. I think it's a great thing.
We've heard a number of businesses sort of do this thing already, haven't we? I mean, because we heard from one hotel, the budget hotel chain, talking about getting more working mums and dads back into work by offering more flexible hours. But it strikes me it's not particularly revolutionary, is it?
It's most probably not revolutionary, but the idea that the government's got behind it and they've created a new website, which is a new way of doing it, is most probably the thing. I think the idea of offering flexible working is going to be the future of work anyway for a lot of people, not just mums. But I thought on Mothering Sunday, let's get behind more and more people get back into work, especially in the technology companies. So more and more mums should be returning to work, and hopefully for tech companies as well. So learning new things like coding, etc., which links into the next story.
Yes, this is from You magazine, and a little story you picked up here. When we grow up, we want to be employed, and look at all the variety of things that they want to do. But, you know, many traditional jobs won't be around, I suppose, in 20 years' time.
Well, again, you know, as a technology guy, I talk about AI and the future of work and other things. So a lot of these jobs might not be there, but we've got to remember, of course, that a lot of things still will be. So I know, like my nephew Alfie wants to get into being a football player. That's not likely to be replaced. We're not going to replace Gaza with a robot anytime soon, or football players with robots. Yeah. However, there are other things where we might do. So AI might start linking into things. What I found really interesting in that article is Sir Martin Sorrell, who started WPP. He says the most important two languages now are Chinese and coding, which is great news to me, because I was trying to get Mia into both of those. It hasn't really worked out. Exactly.
Mia's like your daughter.
Mia's my daughter, yes, she's 8, and we're yet to get her into both Chinese and coding. But I think the more and more people we can get behind coding is going to be really important for the next generation. You know, and I think if we're honest, yeah, the jobs are going to change, aren't they? You know, the reality is it's not always going to stay the same. I love the bit here, I don't know if you saw it, but it says, journalism is a rewarding job, but is it future-proof? And I think that's a really interesting way of looking at it. Are we creating things? And what they've said in that article is one of the most important skills, actually, is not about technology. It's actually around adaptability. And it's the softer skills we've got to start looking at. And I think that's most probably true.
Yeah.
Sorry, I've just flicked on a couple of pages, Dan. This isn't the story I have, but can I just show people this? They've got a feature here about desirable larders. Look at the state of this. Whose larder looks like that?
That's hilarious.
Someone
Look
did
at
a great job.
There's a Jamaican section up here. I'm not sure if you can see that.
Different types of cereal.
Gorilla Munch.
Nuts.
There we go. That's for you, Ben.
I have larder lust. I mean, they've caught me on that one. That's what it says.
Wow.
But there should be a whole career in that, I think. Never mind coding and Mandarin. There should be a career in this. Sorry, Dan. Anyway, you didn't pick that out to talk about.
Oh, look. And a whole section on pickles.
Shall I just leave you to look at that?
Larder porn.
Let's have a look at
it.
This is in the business section, isn't it, of The Observer, talking about Lyft. Now, it's a bit like Uber, isn't it? Many people might not have heard of it. But it's about how much money they're valued at. And yet some of them don't even make a profit.
This is like a US firm, isn't it? This is huge in the US.
Absolutely massive in the US. I think it's got 2 million people that are actually drivers on it. So lots and lots of people use it over in there. They lost something like 991 million last year, but they are valued, of course, as one of these tech unicorns, worth more than $1 billion. And at the moment, tech, I mean, let's be honest, 2019 is going to be the year of tech and these IPOs and these massive valuations. You look at someone like WeWork, who's kind of a property and tech company, they're losing, I think it's something like $1 billion. But so much money ploughing in.
Dan, because why then are these firms valued at that? Because I'm assuming investors are looking at what they think they will be worth, right?
You're absolutely right. That's exactly the thing. So it's not about how much money they're losing at the moment, it's how much they're investing in, and then what's the next step. So what's the play? So if you look at something like Lyft or Uber, they're most probably not thinking about the money they're making now, but actually with the future, with autonomous cars and with AI and other things, are they going to be able to replace that whole market, and what they're going to do with that technology? So actually, it's the potential of this industrial revolution that these investors are betting on. And they're really looking at the future of work and how we're actually going to interact with technology. So they're not thinking about money now, they're thinking about it in 5 years or in 10 years' time.
But you know what, though? It's all everyone's best guess, and this is the problem with all of these things, is, yeah, you know, OK, so they all might be unicorns or whatever we want to call them, these billion-dollar companies, but there's no guarantee that one great idea is any better than another idea. And, you know, we've heard from some of the tech companies that they think the future, you know, we heard from Facebook, wasn't it, that the future of communications is going to be private, small chats.
Encrypted messages.
Well, and also, but they do own both of those. So in that respect, they own quite a few of these things. I think if we're honest, if you look at the future of the world, there's going to be some pretty big plays that are just going to happen. So computerization is going to happen. AI is going to be happening. Autonomous vehicles is most probably going to be happening. So those much bigger themes are what these guys are betting into and what these people are betting into. And I don't think that's actually really going to change. That's the thing. So that's what they're going for. I don't know if we've got time for the last one.
Very briefly, quickly. Sorry, time's again, we've been chatting too much about larders. Back to the Future test finds brain disease 10 years earlier. So actually tech being used in other ways.
Exactly, into a positive story. This is a young lady who taught herself coding, and then this actually predicts or can look at facial recognition and actually say that you could get Parkinson's disease a little bit earlier and detect it earlier with an 88% accuracy level. So this is a great example of positive tech helping people, maybe making some money as well, but helping people, you know, detect diseases like this, which I think is really the future of technology.
How do we get people into coding? Because you've mentioned it twice.
How do we get more and more people into coding is a huge thing. I think stories like this, Erin Smith, you know, a young lady who's taught herself coding, they become role models for the next generation. And I think that's what we've got to look at, is not necessarily the massive companies, not the Facebooks and the Mark Zuckerbergs of this world, but the tinier, smaller startup companies that can become role models. And the more and more, you know, you guys talk about it on the BBC and other places, the more and more people can see it and go, actually, that's the future. It's not just in footballing and all the rest of it, it's in, you know, in coding too.
Well, as it becomes mainstream and not sort of niche.
Yeah, exactly. And also, you know, larder stuff, massive industry.
There you go. There's a whole range of storage inspo and all sorts of things as well. So everything from coding to larder porn.
Yeah, we might
have our papers today. We've got it all for you.
Matt has a look at the weather. Matt, I don't imagine you're